On the 18th of November, 1883, at noon, the railroads of North America changed the time. A signal went out by telegraph from an observatory in Washington, and in city after city, the clocks struck 12, were pushed backward, and struck 12 again. 50 million people in the United States went to bed inside a day that had been redrawn by a private committee of railway managers, and the United States government had nothing to do with it. No legislature had voted on it. The authority behind it was an agreement between competitors. But the time zone was not invented to organize the world, and it does not begin in Washington or inside an observatory. It begins with a clock in a watchmaker's window, in a town keeping a noon that belonged to nobody else. For most of the 19th century, a town knew what time it was by looking up. Noon was the moment the sun crossed the meridian overhead, and a town fixed that moment once, corrected it against a transit instrument, and handed it to one trusted clock. Usually that clock sat in a watchmaker's window on the main street, behind glass, where anyone walking past could set a pocket watch without going inside. Every town did the same, and every town got a different answer, because the sun does not arrive everywhere at once. Roughly 13 miles of travel east or west moves solar noon by a full minute. Wisconsin ran on 38 local times. Indiana ran on 23. Across North America, there were roughly 144 of them. 144. Every one of them was correct, in the way that every town minting its own coin is correct, until somebody tries to spend it 2 valleys over. And for 2 centuries, that arrangement injured nobody. But a train does not stop at the edge of a town's noon. On a single-track railroad, and most of the country was single-track, 2 trains traveling toward each other share one rail, and the only thing keeping them apart is a printed schedule and the watch in each conductor's pocket. One train holds at a siding until a stated minute. The other must be past that siding by then. There is no signal, no radio, and no dispatcher who can see both trains at once. There is a timetable, there is arithmetic, and there is one track. It is 2 men crossing a single plank in the dark, each counting his own steps and trusting the other to have counted the same. Local time was harmless for as long as it stayed local. Then it was loaded onto a locomotive and carried at 40 miles an hour. The clock was already ticking. The towns just could not hear it yet. So the railroads built a time of their own. Each company picked a city and ran its entire system on that city's noon, which meant a passenger boarding in one state and stepping off in another spent the journey on the clock of a city he had never seen. The Union Pacific alone operated on 6 different standards, anchored to Omaha, Jefferson City, St. Joseph, Denver, Laramie, and Salt Lake City. Pittsburgh sat inside 6 competing standards at once. A salesman leaving Boston for St. Louis had to move his watch back by 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 46 seconds. The railroads were measuring one track with rulers of a dozen different lengths, and in the depots, the contradiction was hung on the wall in brass and glass. 2 clocks, side by side, one showing the time of the town, and one showing the time of the railroad, both running, neither wrong. The station at Buffalo carried 3 of them on one wall, and all 3 were right. Those clocks were not a curiosity for travelers to laugh at. They were a warning, mounted at eye level, that 2 systems of time were now sharing the same iron. But the gap between those clocks was measured in minutes, and minutes were the entire safety system. On the 12th of August, 1853, a southbound excursion train on the Providence and Worcester Railroad, loaded with day travelers, ran toward a single-track section outside Valley Falls, Rhode Island. Conductor Frederick Putnam had set his watch the previous night against the company clock in Providence, exactly as the rules required. The watch was 2 minutes slow. Under the timetable, his train needed 5 minutes to clear the section before the northbound passenger train held the right to it. By his watch, he had 4. He went. The 2 trains met head-on at roughly 40 miles an hour. 2 minutes at 40 miles an hour is more than a mile of track, which is to say the error was longer than the distance either engineer could see. 14 people were killed. 17 more were seriously injured. 2 minutes. Think about that. The coroner's inquest found the conductor liable for failing to carry a reliable timepiece, which was accurate and which missed the point completely. The watch was not broken. It had been set correctly, against the correct clock, in the correct city, on the correct night. 14 people died because 2 men employed by the same railroad, running on the same rails, disagreed by 120 seconds about when the morning had started. The brakes held. The rails held. Every man on both trains did exactly what the rulebook told him to do, and the rulebook rested on a number that was not the same in 2 hands. If you are finding this video interesting, hit subscribe. We cover stories like this every week, and you will not want to miss what is coming next. Proposals to fix it had existed for years. A school principal named Charles Dowd laid out a national system of hourly zones in 1870 and was turned down. Sanford Fleming argued for a worldwide 24-hour standard in 1876. Cleveland Abbey published a full report on standard time in 1879, and still nothing moved. What finally moved it was the arithmetic of self-interest. The railway companies worked out that a system designed in their own boardrooms would cost them less than one designed in Congress. They handed the work to William Frederick Allen, Secretary of the General Time Convention, who cut roughly 49 operating railway times down to 5 zones, each 1 hour apart. On the 11th of October 1883, at the Grand Pacific Hotel in Chicago, the companies voted it through. The rollout was neither clean nor simultaneous. Some lines had already moved on the 7th of October. Some waited until the 2nd of December. On the 18th of November, the Naval Observatory in Washington and the Allegheny Observatory in Pittsburgh pushed the signal down the telegraph wires, and it reached every station on the wire faster than a man could cross a platform. A continent that had never agreed on anything agreed on noon. It worked, but it also produced something the railway managers had not planned for: refusal. A railroad can order its own trains. It cannot order a city. Chicago pushed back hard enough that one of its own railroads deferred the change, and in Washington, the Attorney General took the position that no observatory and no committee of private companies could alter the legal time of the country without an act of Congress. Dozens of towns simply carried on with the sun, because nothing in law compelled them to do anything else. Detroit kept its own solar time for another 17 years, and when the city council finally ordered the clocks moved back 28 minutes onto Central Time in 1900, roughly half the city ignored the instruction. 28 minutes, long enough to eat a meal, and the city was being asked to hand it to a timetable. The matter was not settled there until a citywide vote in 1905, and in more than one town, the objection was theological rather than legal. Noon was set by the sun was set by God, and a committee of executives in a Chicago hotel had no standing to overrule either one. Standard time was not resisted because people misunderstood it. It was resisted because they understood it precisely and disliked what it meant. Congress did not settle the question until the 19th of March 1918, 35 years after the railroads had already settled it in practice, and even then, standard time arrived attached to a wartime daylight saving measure rather than on its own merits. The law froze a negotiated border into place and called it noon. Time zones now follow state lines, coastlines, provincial boundaries, and trade relationships, and they bend wherever a government finds it useful to bend them. India runs 30 degrees of longitude on one clock, putting roughly 90 minutes of daylight between its eastern and western edges. In 1949, China placed a country spanning more than 60 degrees of longitude, 5 geographic zones wide, onto a single clock set to Beijing. In the far western city of Kashgar, the sun reaches its highest point at 10 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. 3 hours and 10 minutes after the clock on the wall says the day has turned over. On the Atlantic coast of Spain, the sun peaks near 20 minutes to 3 in August. In each of those places, the clock is right and the sun is wrong. Nobody notices, because the clock is the one everybody else is using. Standard Time crossed a continent in a single afternoon because the alternative was two men on one track doing arithmetic from two different clocks. It stripped 144 town clocks of their authority. It settled the argument that had killed 14 people outside Valley Falls. It outlasted the pulpits and the city councils that spent a generation refusing it. And it pushed the sun 3 hours out of step with the clocks in Kashgar. The clock in the watchmaker's window lost. Of the two on the station wall, one for the town and one for the railroad, only one is still keeping time. It ended the local noon. It rebuilt the working day. It took the sun off the clock face. And it is in your hand right now, at the top of the screen, 4 digits agreed on by governments and rounded to the nearest hour. The clock on your phone is not showing you the time where you are standing. If this story surprised you, subscribe for more deep dives into the true price of the ordinary things around you. We have got a lot more coming.